Everyone, Michael Kerr here. In my latest book, Small Moments, Big Outcomes, How Leaders Create Cultures That Fuel Extraordinary Results, I have a chapter on the importance of workplace values. And in fact, throughout the entire book, I circle back time and time again to the importance of values. Values are what make or break a workplace culture, an inspiring workplace culture, a great workplace culture. I mean, every workplace has values, but some of those workplaces aren't necessarily inspiring or great workplaces because they're forgetting the importance of those two cliche sayings, actions speak louder than words and talk is cheap. So coming up, I have some questions for you to ponder that will help you define your workplace values and help you focus your workplace values. That will help you take your values more seriously and ensure that you truly are living your values out loud.
Let's energize your workplace. Mike's here for some serious fun.
The first key to making sure you're living your values out loud is to translate your values into observable behaviors and mindsets. So the first question I have for you is simply, what can you do to translate your values in an effective, inspiring, memorable way so that they become sticky, so everybody remembers your values and understands what those suckers actually really mean? A second great question to ask is, what are some critical behaviors that will indicate we are supporting this value? What critical behaviors will show that we understand what these values actually mean? A third great question under this category of translating your values is having this conversation with your team. Which of your values is your number one priority value? Because in reality, there are going to be times when values clash with each other, where you can't possibly do both. You have a very tricky situation, you have a conflict situation at work where two values compete against one another, and you do have to, in real life sometimes, choose one value over the other. So what is your umbrella value? What is the top level, most important value in your workplace? This is a great conversation to have with your team because not only does it get you thinking about what is your highest level value at work, it also gets you just having a really good conversation about what your values actually really mean. When you get into this conversation, you can't help but talk about examples and talk about different situations where these values might need to be evoked. So have this conversation. What is your number one most important value? And the last question when it comes to translating your values, what stories do you have, or even just singular story do you have that would really make the biggest emotional impact to employees, that reflects a change in either your leadership or in the organization's attitude about how you conduct business, that shows that you are serious about this value? What story can be incredibly powerful and get retold time and time again in your organization that will help show that this value is really important and this is what we mean by this value? The second thing you need to do if you are going to take your values seriously is to model your values out loud. So a couple of questions to help you model your values out loud. Number one, could your colleagues, could your employees define what your values are without you having to say them? In other words, just based on your attitude, your mindset, your words, and especially your behaviors, what are the most important values to you? Are you reflecting your values, in other words, through your words and through your behaviors? Number two, what can you do so that you are actually seen living your values out loud? In other words, what can you do to make your values more visible through your behaviors? Number three, what are some red flags that might indicate that you or your team are not living up to your values? And number four question, what are some green flags, some good signs, in other words, that you are living up to those values? And number five, does the amount of time and energy and money, perhaps, that you spend reflect what you say your values are? Because you could say that this is a certain value. important in your workplace, important in your team. But if nobody's spending any time or energy or resources on that value, then it really isn't an important value to you. That's how we know it's an important value. Is that where you are putting your money, your energy, your time, your hard work? Think about this in personal life. In your personal life, if you say that fitness is a really important value to you, but you never seem to have time for it, and you go to the gym once every 3 months, or you do some physical activity once every 6 months, then it's really not an important value to you because you're not backing it up through your time, through your energy, through sometimes your dollars. So are you backing it up with your time, energy, and resources? And finally, the final step in making sure you are living your values out loud is to treat them not as cheesy slogans, but as lines in the sand that people cannot cross. These can't be things that you do every now and then when the mood fits you. They have to be consistently lived out loud. So the first question is, how can you hold employees accountable for living your values out in a way where they still feel supported and valued and appreciated, but where they also gain an understanding of how important this value is and why they have to live it out loud all the time consistently? Second question, can you build a culture on your team, in your workplace, where employees feel okay talking to their peers, to their coworkers, where they feel comfortable stepping up and coaching their fellow employees when it comes to living their values out loud? Do your employees feel comfortable speaking up in the face of someone else not living up to one of your core values and giving them some constructive, positive feedback to help support their coworkers? And number 3, what can you do to better celebrate and recognize your employees who are living your values out loud so that you reward and recognize more of the behaviors that you want to see in your workplace? So, translate your values, model your values relentlessly, and make sure you treat them like lines in the sand. As always, please remember to hit the subscribe button, join our growing community as we talk about inspiring workplaces that rock, and I'd invite you to cruise by my website, www.mikekerr.com gets you there. I have all sorts of articles, resources there that can help you build a better workplace. And if you sign up for my raved about weekly newsletter, Inspiring Workplaces, you will get the free ebook, 401 Ways to Create a More Inspiring, Rocking, and yes, fun workplace.